This is Sandra Swan with Christian Radio for the Nation's Capital.com. I'm here at NRB Convention. We are here all week talking with broadcasters from across the country. And we need to know what's going on in Washington, D.C. that's going to affect broadcasters who are broadcasting on Christian radio. We also need to reach out to listeners who are wondering where is their Christian program going. So today I have with me Nic Anderson, and he's with Salem Communications and Government Relations, and he's going to address some questions for us that I know you want to hear. We're going to dispel the rumors and find out what's really going on and what are the facts. And now, Nic, I'd like to invite you to address everyone and let them know what's going on in our nation's capital that affects them as broadcasters and listeners.
My name is Nic Anderson. I'm blessed to serve in a dual capacity role with Salem Media Group. Half my job is overseeing our Minneapolis-St. Paul Twin Cities cluster, and the other half of my job is overseeing our government affairs office for our company, which owns and operates 108 radio stations, and we have 3,100 radio affiliates who carry Salem Radio Network programming. So let me explain a little bit what's going on in Washington, D.C., where I spend a lot of my time, and recently a lot more of my time. So a lot of people have been hearing about the headlines of AM radio in the headlines, on, things about electric vehicles and does the AM signal work, and then what is this about AM radio being taken out of vehicles? And let me just bring you back a little bit and explain how we got to the situation we're in. So many years ago, electric vehicles were brought on, and a few of the manufacturers decided to take AM out of the vehicle. And it was because of the wiring and the mechanics of AM and an electric vehicle. And so a lot of folks were worried about that. And so manufacturers decided not to put AM in these vehicles. And some people, and I would say manufacturers, thought it was an issue, and it is an issue. But, listeners, there weren't that many electric vehicles out there, especially all electric. There were hybrids, but not all electric. And so a lot of people didn't put two and two together at the time. Well, in recent years, the last few years, it's become more obvious as the government has given more money to incentives to manufacturers. More and more listeners are buying, or more and more consumers are buying electric vehicles. And in March of this year, it was announced that Ford not only was not going to put the AM AM radio receiver in some of their vehicles, they weren't going to put it into the combustible engine Mustang. And that got everyone's attention in industry. And then they doubled down about a week later, and they said, we're not going to put the AM receiver in any of our 2024 vehicles. And we went from an industry of thought it was an electric vehicle issue to now it's not going to be an issue. It's not going to be in the vehicle at all. And that is what really became the firestorm. And then that's when pretty much put a lot of us in Washington, D.C. to lobby on this issue. And so that was the issue, is that right now Ford and about 7 other manufacturers have decided we're not going to put an AM receiver in a vehicle moving forward, or in most of their vehicles. And so there was legislation that was just introduced last week called the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. It was introduced in both the House, U.S. House, and the U.S. Senate, introduced with 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats in each chamber. And it, in essence, puts the mandate of an AM receiver in every single vehicle starting in 2024, and it puts it right up next to a seatbelt and an airbag. And here's why. AM radio is the backbone to the emergency alert system, the EAS. FEMA, the National NOAA, the National Weather Service, they all use the EAS to notify listeners of pending crisis, storms, severe weather, wildfires, hurricanes, tornadoes. And so AM radio is literally the backbone of the EAS. And so it is a life-saving tool. 90% of the country can be alerted with crisis information within 10 minutes because of AM radio, the EAS, and how things are worked within our government. So it absolutely is a life-saving tool. It's absolutely needed in vehicles, and it should be considered right there with the seatbelt and with an airbag. And so that's the legislation. It's been introduced. It's bipartisan. It's not a Republican issue. It's not a Democratic issue. It is bipartisan. And it really is important for the consumer to have AM radio. It's important for AM broadcasters to have AM radio in the vehicle. And it's important for the industry beyond AM. It's important for FM broadcasters to have AM, because we don't want to have AM be removed from the vehicle and then FM being removed potentially later on. So it's very important across the board. What can you as the average listener do to help us? A couple of things. Number one, you can contact your local member of Congress, your House of Representative member, or your U.S. senators, and to let them know the importance of AM radio in the vehicle. You can call them, you can email them, you go to their website, and they have different ways to contact you. You can also talk to your local car dealers. If you buy your Ford at a particular dealer, or you buy your GM vehicle at a particular vehicle dealer, you could bring it up to them and let them know that you're worried about that. We can use the consumer reaction to let those dealerships know. That's how you can help us. Our goal is to get this legislation passed. Our goal is to get an AM receiver in every single vehicle. AM costs nothing to the consumer, to the listener. It's free. It's over the air. You get your you get your ag news. You get your weather. You get your sports. You get your conservative and liberal and Christian and religious conversation and talk. So it's absolutely crucial that we have AM radio and receivers, and it's free. There is no cost to it. And if you're an AM broadcaster, we want to make sure you're there. And, those AM broadcasters, yes, listeners are listening in other ways. They're listening on their phone and over the, internet and, web components and on smart speakers. But at the end of the day, the majority of our listeners are still listening to on AM. And a lot of the listening is still happening in the car. If you're looking for more information about this subject or about other things that are happening, our friends at the National Association of Broadcasters, the NAB, has a website called dependonam.com, dependonam.com, all one word, and you can learn more. You can also have, there's stats and figures, but then you can also talk to or communicate to your local member of Congress by putting in your address, and then there'll be a letter sent to them. So really a lot of your work is handled through that website. So we'd encourage you to do that and to help keep AM strong. This is an important topic for our industry to stay united.
I want to thank Nic with Salem Media for giving us the lowdown on what's happening with the AM signal. Thank you so much. We appreciate him being a guest on Christian Radio for the Nation's Capital.com. And we'll have more updates as we hear more from Nic. So stay tuned.